What's up, YouTubers? It's me, Johnny. I'm in Alamogordo, New Mexico, making another video tonight. Having some beer from Santa Fe Brewing Company. Here's the logo. Looks pretty cool. There you go. As you can see, it's an IPA, not bad. Oh, excuse me. It's been raining here the last couple days. I've been pretty bored out of my wits. I'm done in, I came back, for those who don't know, about 3 months ago, I came back from Central America and Mexico back to the United States to handle some affairs for both my parents. And now I'm getting ready to exit the United States. And I'm in New Mexico right now on my way to Iowa. I'm going to drop a car off for a family member. I don't know what I'm going to do after that. I was going to get a job. I was going to stay here a while, but now I don't think I'm going to do that. From all the stuff I've been seeing in the States, the United States, excuse me, got to readjust. And the United States isn't really where I want to be anymore. It's a painful thing to say. I grew up here, but I spend more time outside of the U.S. than in. I used to spend up to a year in the Philippines. It's getting to the point now where you can stay in the Philippines up to 3 years without ever leaving the country. I can't remember when you get your ID, but there's a process you go through at the immigration where you just keep extending your visa, and eventually you get a picture ID you got to pay for. It's about $100. With that picture ID, you stay there and you can start up a bank account, brokerages, which is something I'm interested in, but maybe the viewers aren't. So it's a way to get a residence without a permanent residence or anything. You just fly in. You just fill out the paperwork. You can bank, have a brokerage account if you wish to have it. Those are things I'm interested in, but I understand a lot of viewers may not. But you can have a local bank account, have a way to get paid in local currency. You can have a U.S. dollar account in the Philippines, very, very easy. Same in Guatemala. You can have a dollar account and a quetzal account, and it's just an easy way to diversify yourself offshore a little bit if you want to. Now, in my case, I have residency in Central America. I need to get on more on the. I have corporate accounts and stuff like that, but no personal accounts. I've been thinking lately I probably need to start opening up a local account in my name so I can take payment for job opportunities and things like that, or just for people who want to send me money, as opposed to having it sent in the U.S. The only reason I mention that is because if you've been watching the news, there's just so much going on in the U.S. and Europe that I don't particularly want to live here. Just here's an example. There's Russian YouTubers. They have dollar-based income, but because of all the sanctions, they cannot use their dollars. Even in the because they have local accounts in Russia, dollar accounts, they can't access them, or they can only access them up to $10,000, and they can't really take out their money. Now, as of now, my understanding is they don't lose their money, but if they want to take it above 10,000, they have to cash out in euros, or pardon me, not in euros, in rubles. Now, if they get paper rubles, it's very, very difficult. Again, I want to stress right now, maybe not in the future, to trade that in for dollars. The exchange rate, well, let me put it this way. You have to do it on the black market. You may not get a good rate for dollars on the black market. If you're a very wealthy person, maybe there's a way you can do that at the banks and you will get a very favorable exchange rate. But if you're just an average man or woman, from the YouTubers I know and follow, with domiciled U.S. dollar accounts in Russia, it's very difficult to get your dollars. The only reason I point this out is because I kind of foresee this happening for gringos or foreigners, at least if they're U.S. citizens living abroad. As of right now, I don't ever see that happening. But if it got really bad, and if the U.S. wanted to make it difficult for Americans, I don't think they would, but just if they just decided they want to, they can make it very difficult to convert your dollars overseas or send them offshore or whatever. And I've been thinking about that more and more. So I already have accounts offshore that are important, all that kind of stuff. But I've been thinking more and more, maybe I need to have more accounts in my Christian name as opposed to corporate stuff. I've been, just a little bit more diversification. Which brings me to the fact that, like, one of the biggest kind of takeaways from coming back to the States for this 4 months is people seem to be at each other's throats. It's harder and harder to make a living and live with. It's harder and harder to make a living and live within your means as far and save money and get ahead. And it's more and more. I don't want to say impossible, but it's very, very difficult to earn a living in a business and keep a low profile and out of the view of the government. Now, of course, you can start up an LLC and you can do all that. You can use nominee accounts. Again, I don't want to say you can't, but from what I've seen, it's getting more and more difficult to do that. Your income's monitored. How you get paid is monitored. I've said on my channel, not very often, but like one time I had 2 checks, put that in quotation, 2 checks go through my account, and I had a suspicious activity report on me. No, it didn't come to anything. It didn't affect me, but because I knew the banker and the tellers, and they just brought it to my attention that they had to put an SAR on it because I got 2 checks. Now I can't even imagine what it is now, but I mean, you're at the point now where everything is so monitored, and like I guess with ESG, people are going to monitor your transactions. If you're buying too much booze, you're buying too much fuel or gasoline or any kind of energy. Not now, but it could be in the future where like you're going to be cut off from your accounts. That's all I'm getting at. So with all this kind of nonsense going on in the States, I just kind of threw in the towel and decided I'm going to probably start a new channel, but I'm going to start a new kind of channel on a lifestyle, like where I just don't really live in the U.S. much anymore. This is not any kind of political statement. I still think the United States is a great place. I still think it's one of the best places. I still think there's excellent infrastructure here. What I mean by that is financial infrastructure, like LLCs, bank accounts. The United States is one of the easiest places to set up a bank account in an LLC where you don't have to hardly comply with any laws. It's funny because you could be an American or a foreign person. You get an EIN, not a tax ID. Well, a tax ID number, not a social security number. An EIN, you don't have to get it. Your lawyer can get it, and you can have a bank account probably in 15 minutes. Anywhere in the world. So you could have your lawyer in the Philippines, your lawyer in Central America, set up an LLC for your benefit without your name on it or anything. Just real easy. So despite what the U.S. government says about other countries laundering money and doing things they're not supposed to do, you can still do all those things in the U.S. But if you're a U.S. citizen living here, it's difficult for you to do that. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're under the thumb of the government and all the regulations here. And from the last 4 months I've been here, I'm just frustrated. I'm just really frustrated on how things are. I mean, when you look at all the loss of freedom and liberty you have, then you look at how high the cost of living is, how high rents are. There's a lot I can't go into. Like, I wanted to talk about third-party checks. I won't even get into that. But it used to be third-party checks weren't a big deal. Now, I don't really do that stuff anymore. But, like, I was just thinking, like, all the games you used to play and keep a really, really low profile here, it's pretty much come to an end. Like people are talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. I can see that. Although I see it coming, I just think it's going to be more difficult than people think, and it could take longer than people think. But I do see how governments will kind of implement it. And if they do, I assume the U.S. will be the last to do it. But when I see what's happening in China, and as more information leaks out about what China is doing, and as information leaks out how the Western countries like the United States and the United Kingdom want to copy those rules, and how I don't see any pushback from both the Democrats or the Republicans to push back on any of this. It's just distressing to see it. Like, they just want to jump in there. Oh, wow, it works for the Chinese. We better do it. We got to stop those baddies and implement this. And I can just see it's going to be used for political reasons to punish people. It's going to be used for tax reasons to punish people who are productive. So, like, I'm kind of like many Americans. I'm at my wit's end. I just think about my options. I can actually live, work, and play. As I've said in previous years, I actually got job opportunities to work overseas from non-U.S. companies, and I'm in a consultation. Well, I will be in a consultation with someone about the few American companies that will pay me overseas with withholding or without withholding. I just want to see what that option is. So I'm going to be in consultation about that. I'm going to learn more about that. But once you start learning that all these offshore companies will pay you, They'll just pay you as a contractor, just send you dollars. You're good. The only thing I worry about is like you could have it paid into your Christian name or your PayPal account. That's one option, but I'd rather actually have option 2 or 3 where some companies are reluctant to send it to an offshore company, so because it's not in your name, they don't like doing it. Even though that could be an option, it's more and more not an option. So, like say if you live in Central America, you more and more you need an account in your Christian name that matches up with your passport. I don't really like doing that, but that is an option because at least it's not a U.S. based bank, and you can take delivery of dollars and whatever. That's an option too. But I just see the screws kind of tightening everywhere. But at least you can get. Again, it's different than working for yourself, but at least you get a job from other companies overseas, no withholding, and they'll send it to PayPal or they'll send it to this company I was inquiring about. They'll send it to bank accounts, anywhere, just as long as it's in your Christian name, or they'll send it to PayPal. You have that kind of the option. There's from what the research I've done, there's multiple companies that will do that, and it's at first roll wages. So I could work for 19 or 20 bucks an hour here, or I could work overseas. It becomes easier and easier just to take the option where you just live, work, and play overseas. And while you're doing all that, kind of starting up your own consulting business. That's another thing I don't talk about here, but I do have kind of interest in that. I personally will be doing that more, but it's not. I don't really use this channel to promote that kind of stuff. But that's like a sideline income that I will be doing or building out more and more in the future, mainly because I see there's a need for it. There's a demand for it, and also too, I could use the income too, but there's just so much misinformation out there that it's just sad to see people paying thousands and thousands of dollars for a lot of, I don't want to say technically speaking they're wrong, but misinformation that's misleading and has you run down a path you don't really have to run down. And anyways, that's all I'll say. There's just a lot of sharks out there who are going to take advantage if you're a U.S. based person and you want to try to comply with the laws and you're confused about it. There's just a lot of people who will lead you down the most expensive way to do that, and in some cases not legally complying, which I hate to see that. I just, like a lot of videos out there are like they're claiming you're legally compliant, but like if you understand the law and you run it by a U.S. based attorney or an attorney who has many U.S. based clients, you'll soon recognize you're not always complying, and you spend all that money and you're not in compliance, and you could be SOL or up a creek without a paddle. Anyways, so I've been thinking about more and more that I might be doing that, but it will be a very tight niche that I'm not sure many people on this channel will really care about. I mainly have 2 niches: how to live really, really cheap anywhere in the world, but most especially Latin America and the Philippines or Southeast Asia, and then 2, how to make yourself invisible as far as creating income either in the U.S. or outside the U.S. that's basically invisible to the government. I want to stress, but you're paying your taxes. I'm not talking about cheating on your taxes. I'm just saying it's totally invisible. Report to whoever you got to report to, and that's how it is. And that's harder and harder to do, but there are still people doing it, and there's not a lot of people talking about it. But as an American, you can make up to about $107,000, $108,000 with your tax credit and do all that sense. But then again, you're on the radar. But there are still a few kind of ways you can kind of maneuver around that. But I want to stress that's getting harder and harder and harder to do and stay within the confines of the law. So I do want to stress that. And doing that while you live in the U.S., no. If you do anything I do or suggest, you better make sure you live outside the U.S. and fill out your stuff, whatever you got to do. And if you can or you are able to set up things so it's invisible, then it doesn't matter as much. That's all I'm going to say. But if you are going to do that, I would suggest you not living in the U.S. much anymore. Same if you're from Northern Europe or Europe in general, or Canada. If you're from any first world country. Now, in general, in Asian countries, I don't think they care as much what people do when you leave the country there, so they don't have to worry about this as much. But if you're a Latin American or Asian and you live, work, and play in those countries, don't even care that much. Anyhow, I'm getting kind of beyond the scope of this video, but that's kind of like what I see here in the States is we're seeing kind of the twilight of privacy and personal rights and rights to your property and all that. It's just distressing to see. And what's to me the kind of nail in the coffin is none of that. It's just the fact that the cost of living is so high, and the regulatory compliance is so high. It's really hard to start a sideline business. Not hard. It's costly. Not hard. It's costly to be in compliance with all these rules and regulations. Start a side business, sideline income, without having to worry or be concerned about the heavy-handed government coming down on you. It's not like the 80s or the 70s for that matter. It's not like the 80s or early 90s. From like the mid-90s on, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And if you're domiciled in the U.S., your options are getting to be smaller and smaller and smaller as far as having an invisible income. Again, not impossible, having an invisible income or having a tax-free income or having a low cost of living in the U.S. Used to be Europe was expensive and everyone knew that. And now we're at the point where the United States is now like Europe. It's super expensive to live here. Being in compliance with all the tax laws and regulatory laws is just super expensive and costly. I feel like now, like the Europeans I used to know in the 80s and early 90s where they had to leave. I feel like I'm like that. Like just to get by, you practically have to leave unless you enjoy being kind of a slave in the system here. Again, I don't mean to like name call or anything. That's not my intention or hurt anyone. It's just feels like in the U.S. you're just like a cog in the wheel, a slave in the system, and you're not in control of your future, so to speak. Especially if you work for other people. It's like you have to work for yourself. I've kind of determined that you have to have options outside your country of birth, or you just can't diversify properly. It's getting to the point now in the U.S. where I'm not sure your pension assets will be safe from confiscation. Now, as of right now, I don't think it's a big concern, but I could see that in the future. And it's getting harder and harder to legally open a bank account as a U.S. citizen unless you have a residency overseas. So you can't even hedge that way by having a bank account. There's still a few banks that if you legally live in the U.S. and have a residency here, they'll open an account, but there's very few. And there's very few banks that actually have options to invest your money in ways that you would want to invest. So you can't even just move pay your tax, move your capital overseas easily if you're a middle class person. It's just not easy like it used to be. It's just getting harder. You practically have to have a legal residency, prove you have it, and then you can open brokerages, bank accounts, have companies and stuff like that. So anyways, that's it for now. I'm kind of rambling too much. I guess the takeaway here is I've been in the States 4 months, and how can I say this? For me personally, I don't feel like there's a future here. Anyways, for other people, there may be a future here, but if you're really a productive person, you're making a lot of money, you're going to figure out sooner or later that you can be more productive and keep more of your money legally by just being somewhere else. Anyhow, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks.